Hi, Dan. Hi, Dan. All right, sweet. Lovely day, darling. Good morning. Morning, buddy.
G'day, mate. I'm in here, but I've got a big technical issue, so
Don't worry.
I'm just fiddling.
Oh, is that a technical issue?
I've had a shit of a day.
Oh no!
Shit of a day. Oh
What's been
mate,
going on?
wait till I get it trading. Wait till I get organised here, and
No problem. Well,
tell you my story of woe.
I am ready to trade this FTSE, and I am looking for downside. Let me just show everybody what's going on here. So the question is, I don't want to miss it, but by the same token, I don't want to get in too early here. So I'm just going to bring up my screen here. 1 second. Right. Now, it's tempting already. Okay, so we are, let's just bring up my screen for everybody. I might take this trade, but now I did say yesterday that I would look for, I'll be happy to look for fairly weak signals here. Now, we have to be aware that, why is that flashing? Why is that flashing? Hold on. No, that seems right. Okay, so we have to be aware that the market. Actually, let me just bring these pivots up for everybody as well. There we go. So this is where we're at. We got these pivots now. That the key area is going to be this trend line. This if we break down this trend line, I think we're in a really good place. But that's given up quite a lot of pips. You know, it's going to have to break the trend line and break the pivot. However, this is a pretty bullish market, so it's probably not a good idea to get in too early here, and it's just not very professional. I really want to get in, and I want to get in now. And I did say that I'd be happy to look for weak signals, but the signals are just a little bit too weak. So we have to be aware of what happens when markets kind of start to get the big guns kind of come in. And what you'll see is that these bars, you know, the candles are really really important to me. So these candles tend to become small and compressed. And you know, if you look at a lot of turning points in a market, you'll see the candles start to come small and compressed, depending on what time frame. And what time frame is most prevalent for that particular market. So what we've got here is these candles become small and compressed, which means that a breakout in one direction or another is very, very likely. But by the same token, we also have to be aware that with our pattern here, our pattern's kind of this symmetrical triangle. And the pattern really only leads us down to the pivot, because if we measure from the top to the bottom of the triangle, which does it like this, then as it breaks down, it leads us. Well, it's going to be dependent on where it is, but it leads us just below the pivot, which is going to be good, which is going to be really good. Now it depends on whether we have to measure it from there. That's the other question here. Probably not, actually. That leads us down to the pivot. But what I don't anticipate, depending on where this pattern probably exists, it probably does exist there actually. So we probably are looking at just below the pivot. But there's much more likely to be a breakdown and a bounce. Now I don't mind that. You know, I'll look at this trade in two areas. I'll either look for a breakdown and a bounce, and as it retests this level, I'll look to go short after it's broken down, or if it comes all the way through here and then bounces back up again, then I'll also be happy to look for a short. So I've got two potential options. There is a weak signal here. There is a weak signal for some downside, and it's all the way out whether I should get in early. I mean, it's so overextended.
Is that the reason? Is you just feel it's that overextended? You've got to get in.
Yeah, not only. I mean, yes, it's overextended, but I think the other thing about it is that this is the thing. The first point of call is always area for me, and the area that we can currently are trading at is right on top of the level that I presumed that there would be the inverted head and shoulders neckline. So if I think of this as a left shoulder and this is the head, this is the inverted head and shoulders neckline. Now we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of a boost in the market. Now we know that with an extension tends to come a retracement. Not always. We see an extension here, small retracement, an extension here, and there's a retracement. So there does tend to be some sort of retracement. So yep. I am looking for the retracement, but what I really like about this is the area. The slight issue I have is that it may not stop here. You know, it may just continue to the upside and end up even stopping as high as this point, which is another 125 pips, or 125 pips away, yeah. or maybe even this point. So that starts to bring in the question of where to hedge. So it's at a level, but it's not at an absolute extreme. There's a couple more, but I do really like it. I do really like it here, and I'm really tempted just to get it get it in the market because it's a great price. Let me just have a look at this. Let me have a look at this pattern again on a shorter term time frame. So it's probably there. It's probably around there. Maybe. You know what? I think I will get this on. I'm going to take that trade. So I've taken that trade to the downside in this area. I'm happy with that. I really, really like the level, first and foremost. And this will be a hedge. If it goes wrong, I won't be coming out of this trade. As I say, I really like the level, and there is a weak signal. And I did say yesterday, you know, if I get a weak signal, then I'll be happy to trade it. And I do have a weak signal here. It's not a great signal by any stretch, but there is a signal all the same. So so that trade is now in the market. Now I will post that. I will post this in the Telegram group just to let people know.
All right, mate. I've got plenty to go through if you want to do that.
Brilliant.
I'll save the tears and sad story until you come back.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. I'll quickly post this up.
Okie doke. All right. One of the things that I suppose the good thing is that currently I'm in EuroCAD. The bad thing is I missed the price, but it happens. And this was just part of the day that I have had because because I don't trade during the morning. It's very, very difficult for me to actually catch these early moves. But I was determined to get this because I'm bullish the euro and bearish the CAD, based on a few things, not least of which the CAD news tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? I think it's Friday. Is forecast to be bad for the CAD. You've got oil falling, and I've got the euro at a place where it needs to get a wriggle on. Otherwise, it's going to disappear. So I was dead keen to get into this. Got a bullish engulfing bar. All I was really looking for was a higher low. Technically, I got a higher low. Terrible candle to trade, but I did place the order. And before I actually got triggered into the trade, the EA that I was using, otherwise known as the Trade Manager, decided to cancel my order. Now that's my fault entirely because I didn't check the close parameters on that. But just like I didn't on another one that I'll get to. But sadly, I didn't get that entry there. But I got a second chance when this small retracement took place. I reset my entry. So that's all good and going well. I'm actually in 2 positions on that one. So the EuroCAD's good. Are you back yet, Ash?
Not quite. I'll be with you in
right. No worries. So I'm happy with that one. I'll start with the Aussie. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? Well, I thought because I was looking for it. If you recall, in yesterday's show, we were looking for a lower high in around about this vicinity, but it didn't come yesterday. It came today. But it's kind of weird because the Aussie rallied very, very. Sorry, that is yesterday. So we were looking for a lower high and just couldn't get one in the show. And today Philip Lowe came out, and I couldn't think for the life of me what he could say that would rally the Aussie because of this rally yesterday on the back of the statement. And I think, oh, this has got to go short. So I can't find a way into this short. But what do I like? What cross do I like? I like Euro Aussie. Well, I like the Euro, and I also like the pound. I thought the pound was at a good space. So I placed an order on pound Aussie. You with us yet, Ash?
No, not quite. No, well, I'm listening to you.
No, I want to save it till in here. So I'm thinking, okay, pound's got to go long, and this is a great candle for the pound to go long from. So far, that's not been the case today, but against the Aussie, I will show you the. Well, I'm sure everyone who trades pound Aussie has seen this. And guess what I did? I placed an order long above this bar here, exactly the same as EuroCAD, as a matter of fact. Technically, probably a double bottom and a very, very early entry, but there it was. I did place the order, and I wasn't in front of the charts at the time because I just left it. I was pretty confident that we'd get to daily pivot at least, so I had some safety there. But this obviously took off in a hurry. And again, the EA that I'm trading with, the trade manager, when I'm not in front of the charts, and in particular on a bigger time frame, didn't allow me into the trade.
I'm with you now.
So I'm just saying, I placed an order long pound Aussie here this morning.
Sorry, you didn't have the screen during any of that. Okay, so yeah, you placed the order long, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll go back and just briefly rehash that then. I placed a long here above this bar. And you'd think I'm really going very well in this trade at the moment, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Current 45 pips was the risk.
Beautiful.
Currently around about 4.5 to 1. Only one issue. I placed the order on the trade manager, and the trade manager has this safety mechanism built into it that if your slippage is greater than you are willing to accept, it won't trigger you. It won't execute the trade. And that's exactly what happened.
So if your slippage is greater than you'd accept, it won't get you in the trade.
Yeah, there's a setting that allows you to nominate how much slippage you're prepared to take.
Yeah.
So any amount of pips. I didn't check what that was, and it's obviously defaulted to something around 3, 4, 5, something like that.
Yeah.
And the slippage was greater than that. And when the slippage is greater than that, it won't execute the trade.
Oh.
So it's trying to save you, but yeah, there's my week's wages right there.
Oh, you're joking.
No.
Oh, mate, that would hurt.
Yeah, that hurts. When I came back and looked at the charts an hour or so later, and price was up here, I thought, oh, excellent.
Yeah,
excellent. That's really nice. Then I had a look at my account, and nothing had changed. Oh, what the
it hadn't got you in.
No, hadn't figured. So there's I missed. You didn't hear. I missed the entry on EuroCAD. I placed that order long here, and same thing. Trade manager expired the trade this time because I didn't have the expiration set at the proper level, so I didn't get into this one. But I got onto it the second time, so I'm into this on a couple of different levels. So I'm happy with that.
So yeah, you do have a trade on there. What's that one?
Yeah, got a couple. That's EuroCAD.
That's the EuroCAD. Okay. So
I've been waiting for the euro, and I'm still waiting on it, and it's now right in perfect position for me to catch it long. But obviously, I need a setup. But I thought CAD news on Friday, both the two CAD newses, employment figures, I think, yes, and both are tipped to be bad. So I figure the CAD's under a bit of pressure.
Nicely done. Yeah, I like that.
Oil's selling off.
Yeah.
It's now below the weekly pivot. That's not going to be good for the CAD.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, if I can't trade the euro, I'll trade the euro against what I believe is going to be the weakest cross. And that's going to be the CAD in the next 24 hours or so. And got a setup. So
I have to
Happy
say,
with that.
oil was one of the reasons that I was keen on a short on the FTSE as well.
Yeah, well, we're both using that as correlation, and I think that's a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you know what most specifically for me was the fact that oil was one of the reasons that the FTSE had such a huge bounce. You know, the oil stocks bursting to the upside was one of the reasons that the FTSE had such a huge bounce. So given that, it kind of makes sense that if oil weakens, that we'd at least see some easing back on the FTSE, a little bit of rowing back on it. So.
Yeah, look, I've got to say, after yesterday's bar, sorry, it was the day before's bar, Monday's bar, this looked anything but bearish, I've got to say. But when I saw this morning that we had come and closed below these pivots, I thought, okay, that candle's a lie, and we're headed towards the bottom here, maybe even to the monthly pivot. So that was my my reckoning on where we'd be with that one.
Mm.
As far as today is concerned, if you're not in those trades, and there's no reason you would be, I suppose, this is like, I just want to cry when I look at this.
Yeah, so I've got two questions on that then. So,
yeah,
what's the fix? You know, if that is the problem, what's the fix for future on something like that happening again?
Yeah, look, it's easy. Don't be in a hurry and check your settings. It's as simple as
Right,
that. If you're
right,
going to use an EA,
yeah,
you know, you've got to check your settings because
yeah,
there are so many variables that can happen there. And
yeah.
entirely my fault. You know, it's not the fault of the EA; it's my fault.
I mean, if I think the EA discussion, and I don't know really where it starts or ends, but I think the EA discussion is a really interesting one. And just you know, just putting it simplistically, would you say that it is it's dependent on the person, or do you think that there is there's a binary answer to whether EA is better than I guess human trading, if you like, all out human analog trading?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's binary on small time frames. I think there's no place for it, frankly,
Right.
in my mind, because I trade with my eye
Yes.
when I'm trading intraday. I
Yeah.
don't trade with numbers,
Yeah.
and you've got to put numbers into an EA, right?
Yes.
On a bigger time frame, end of day or 4 hours, look, I think there's absolutely a place for them, and they're quite wonderful things because they allow you to be away from your charts.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to be cognizant that it will only do what you tell it to do, and if you're going to use default settings all the time, you're going to get burnt, like
Yeah.
I did today.
Yeah.
I mean, I've still got money in my pocket. I haven't lost anything apart from what I should have gained.
Yes.
And you know, it was a massive gain on pound Aussie. Should have been, as I say, there's a week wages going on pound Aussie.
So, so that was a boost up with the pound, was it?
No, it was just the Aussie crashing and
Oh,
the
okay.
pound holding its own. So Philip Lowe's obviously come out and said, "Well, let's turn the clock back to yesterday." And I said yesterday, why has this done this? Why has the Aussie rallied on the back of a no news?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just a totally cut and paste neutral statement from the RBA, yet this rallied and rallied big time. And that was one of the reasons yesterday that I was really keen to get short. And I was really keen to get short.
Mm.
I couldn't see any way that this was justifiable. And unfortunately, I couldn't manage to find an entry. So this morning I was dead keen again, and I found that pound was in a good place to rally. Philip Lowe was going to talk. Couldn't see what he was going to say that would keep the Aussie up here.
Yeah.
And bang goes your mangoes, the way she went.
Yeah.
And you know, just gutted that I missed that pound Aussie. Really gutted.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Eurocad's doing the right thing at the moment, and very, very close to my second take profit level.
Nice, mate. Well, you know, that's something to cheer about anyway. You know, and it's interesting that the pound Aussie. Well, I suppose it's not that it did what it did, as you say. That was much more down to Australia than it was anything else. I still see some weakness. I don't know if you've been looking at the pound, but there's still some weakness out there, isn't there, with the pound? And
there certainly is, but I do like what I'm seeing at the moment. I don't know how good that level is, but
for upside.
Oh, it's very near the monthly pivot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, for upside.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
I mean, let's just have a quick chat about all things UK. Theresa May has recently come out and said that the backstop, not that it's non-negotiable, but it won't be removed, and it won't be negotiated on. It might be adapted, but it won't be removed. You know, she said the hard border in Ireland is not negotiable. Now that has put the Brexiteers' nose very much out of joint. They're not happy with that at all. They believe in the backstop being removed. You know, they want Brexit to happen where there's no ties to the EU whatsoever, and that potentially brings back into the focus the softer Brexit. And we know a softer Brexit that the market so desires is going to be good for the pound. So we may well see some boosting in the pound off the back of that. Now, that story probably needs to unfold a little further, and we do have further meetings today. But if we're looking for any reason that the pound might start to pick up from this particular point, I think we may have one just with that.
Cool, mate. Excuse me for just 2 seconds. I'm just managing a trade.
Okay, no problem. All right. Well, let me quickly take the screen. Now, anybody that's managed to enter the FTSE with me, well, I say manage. We're not by any stretch, you know, off to the races yet. But what we do potentially have is a decent area, you know, for this to start breaking down. Now, I will bring this into the hourly pivots because this is a possible bounce area. Now, there's always different ways that you can kind of play a market. The only thing with this is that let's bring this onto the hourly. Yeah, this is a potential bounce area here with a daily pivot, and then we're likely to see these highs again. So you know, there's always a few different ways you can play. If the market comes down to the daily pivot, then if we've got a belief that it could bounce there, we can actually take the trade completely off the table at that point. I mean, that would still give us a decent 30 pip run, which is you know, that's a decent morning. So if it comes down to this daily pivot, we can take profit here, wait for the bounce, and then re-enter. I mean, we are after the short, and it really does depend on your appetite for trying to predict the exact kind of turning points in the market. But you know, the one thing about it not bouncing here, let's say it just goes straight through, is that the danger is that the trade is completely missed, you know, altogether, because there is a trend line here. This does suggest that there will be a bounce here, you know, of some sort, and I'm not sure what the catalyst is. I have a vague theory about what could drive the market today, which we can come to later on. But you know, by no means is this FTSE breaking down just yet. But if it does, let's say it does continue to ease to the downside, we're going to have to look at this area with some further analysis. Is the best way I can think of putting it right now. But you know, it's by no means the answer. You know, I believe we've got two potential answers here if it comes down. So let's just talk about if the trade was to work out and it continues to move to the downside. We've got two potential answers. Number one is that it comes down here and we take the trade off the table. If it goes through, we have to accept that we've missed out on a really decent drop to the downside. If it goes up again, then we re-enter to the downside. So that's the first potential possibility. That's the first potential scenario, that we just take profit at the daily pivot. The second option is that we just leave the trade on and potentially have to sweat through, if you like, or live through the bounce to the downside. And now there is one other option actually, which I hadn't said. Now the third option is that as the trade comes down here, we just make it safe. You know, we put our stops at break even or at entry, and then let the trade do what it's going to do. If it bounces back up again, then maybe we get a better price and just accept it. If it bounces and spikes and starts to come down, then we'll just get an entry a little bit lower. I think all of them are valid. The first one is going to take some luck and a lot of, probably quite a lot of skill as well. If it comes down here and we take profit waiting for a bounce to re-enter, that's going to take quite a lot of skill and quite a lot of good fortune as well, that the market presents some really clear signs and signals that it's doing what we need it to do. The second option obviously takes the least amount of skill. It does mean that if the market does bounce here and breaks to the upside, that we've got more management to do. And the third option is the safest. You know, that's the safest way to play this, because what it means is if it comes down here and we just move our stops to break even, we've lost or gained nothing. So if it bounces forward, then it bounces back up again and it hits our level, then we haven't lost anything in the trade. But if it bounces up and starts to drift down, then we don't have to worry about the managing, taking profit, getting back in, taking profit, seeing if it breaks down, then seeing if it bounces. We won't have to worry about any of that. So the third option causes the probably the safest plus the less amount of management and subsequently probably the least amount of headache for us. So I can let you know what my preference would be if you're interested, but if you're not, then you know, I would just say that that you do have three potential options there. Now, when it comes down to management, this is where your personal stance has to come into play. You know, this is where a decision for yourself really does have to come into play, because there's almost no point in somebody saying, I mean, as I say, I'm happy to give you my opinion, but there's not really too much point in me telling you what I would do, because even though I may choose to do something one way, it won't be the only thing that I do for the trade. So, for example, if I decide to leave the trade on the table and it bounces to the upside and I don't move any stops, I don't do anything, and it starts to go to the upside, I'm going to consider hedging here, but it's not a definite. You know, it's only a consideration. So there's many other paths that start to open up when a trade is triggered, and this is where you need to kind of decide where you are in your trading journey, because hedging is I mean, it is a skill. I didn't really want to call it that because it sounds like I'm kind of blowing myself up. But
it's a skill.
Yeah, I mean, it's a skill in itself. You know, knowing how to hedge, where to hedge, what you're going to do when you hedge. That opens up a load of new paths, doesn't it? I mean, it's, you know, where there's hedging with putting more on the top end. You know, you could load the hedge up here. So if it breaks to the upside, then this one starts to become negated if you pick the wrong direction. There is hedging equal. So equal amounts above as they are below. There's hedging to a target, but leaving this one on and seeing if it comes up and falls. There's just lots of different ways that you can hedge in a market. And the truth of the matter is, there's not really one hard, fast way to do it. You know, I would treat an area slightly differently depending on where we are. But because we're at the top end of this particular market, you know, or we are at a more significant area of resistance, I'm going to treat this market completely differently, in as much that if it breaks to the upside here, I would consider not even putting on a hedge. You know, I might just leave things as they are. I wouldn't necessarily hedge straight away. You know, there's other areas that would interest me more. Now that also does bring into the size of your account and the amount of stomach you have for price volatility. So, you know, best thing I think at this particular stage for me to do is just allow the market to do what it's going to do. But we will have to consider what we're going to do if it bounces at this point. At least if it comes down and bounces at the daily pivot, we're going to have to consider what we're going to do. So the market is now open, mate.
Yeah, I'm going to say you'll get a good idea here, won't you, in the next 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, and you know, the issue is, you know, as much as anything else, is that we don't really have a catalyst as such that brings this market down. That I'm well. In fact, let's talk about catalyst. We do have a catalyst potentially, and this is where we come to the news here. I'm just going to make sure. Right. Maybe Trump. Trump's announcement yesterday.
He's having the act today, isn't he?
He had yes, it was early in the morning here. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
It was too. Yeah. Okay.
I'll show you the heat map in a moment, but let's bring this into play, because this is you know, an area that we can rely on. You know, when we think about catalyst, there's two ways that we that we can mine in, if you like, for catalyst. One is just listening to everyday business news, which is going to be Bloomberg or CNBC, or you know, you can use the BBC website, you can use Yahoo Finance. There's lots of different ways. Reuters have got their own news feed, and those news feeds are going to be a lot more reliable because they're a bit more broad. They're not just data reliant. So if we think about what announcements could be made, then Donald Trump's announcement maybe could get some pressure. Maybe could put some pressure on the market, because he's kind of back to this wall scenario and back to this wall rhetoric. So that's one aspect. But I think the interesting thing is tomorrow. Now, I did say on the show on Monday that it was today, but it's not today. It's tomorrow when Fed Chair Powell speaks. And the reason I think this is quite interesting is that the market has come a long way off the back of well, a few different things, but one of the things it's come a long way off the back of is Fed Chair Powell's rhetoric about listening to the market and rowing back a little bit. But in saying that, there's going to be some protection here. There's got to be some protection if he comes out and says something else. Now, do people want to continue to push that to the upside with a speech due? You know, the speech is due tomorrow, so it could be a kind of buy the rumor, sell the news, or in this case, sell the rumor, buy the news. You know, we might actually have just a little bit of easing back again, and then as he comes back and says what he needs to say, then we could either get the catalyst for some further downside, or possibly that's when we start to come up again. So for me, a reason, and it's very loose, but a potential reason could be that some of the buyers are kind of some of the big guns are going to kind of row back a little bit and take profit off the table, looking for that Jerome Powell speech to pass before they then get back into the market. Particularly, as I say, at these high levels up here, because you know, when we consider this on a daily chart, we do look like we are on a potential neckline here, or very, very close to it. So that's the reason for me, mate. That's what I'm going to use as a catalyst here. Is the potential that that Jerome Powell might say something that the market doesn't like, or that there's enough profit in the run for people to not need to wait for that speech and let the speech happen and then buy back in again. So I'd like to see it just drift to the downside. It might not be that deep, but I'd like to see it drift to the downside from here.
It's kind of like what I was saying about Philip Lowe today. I mean, what really can he say that's going to benefit the dollar? I can't see what he can say, frankly.
Who's that? Jerome Powell?
Jerome Powell, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe not the dollar, but I guess the markets. That's the thing. You know, he might benefit the Dow and the S&P because of his original stance was that, you know, interest rates would continue to be hiked. But he did come back. He did row back on that, didn't he? And kind of say, you know, in actual fact, I'm fine with not doing that. So there might be something in that. Possibly that people are a little bit nervous about him coming out and saying that. Well, he might even come out and say, you know, the market's in a healthy enough position, so interest rates can go back on the table again. You know, the one thing.
Not new though, is it?
No, no, you're right.
If he says interest rate can go back on the table, yes, that's
Yeah.
going to be a catalyst, definitely.
Yes, yes. Well, I just wonder whether there might be some just a little bit of nervousness up here that could be said, and that's what I'm talking about. You're absolutely right. He's unlikely to say anything new, but I wonder whether just the fact that he's about to speak is going to be enough to get the markets a little bit jittery, and maybe all we see here is a hold. You know, maybe we don't see anything specific. We just see a hold, you know, for the day. Rather than actually, you know, really motoring back to the downside. I mean, the move to the upside has been so strong. There are still bulls in this market, but I think we have to consider who's left at these particular prices. And I'd have to say it's got to be the retail traders. I don't know. I can't see why the pro traders would be getting in here. I think they've already got in. You know, I think that they're in down here possibly, or maybe even here. But I can't see why they'd be getting in here. And when those retail traders start stepping in, they're the ones that get swallowed up because they're right at the end of the move.
Yep.
So yeah, that's just my thinking on it, mate. But you know, it's complete opinion and guesswork. You know, for why a market comes down at this point. I've got no idea what Jerome Powell says. It ultimately exists on a technical level. You know, that's the thing that people should be focusing on from the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is because we're on a technical level. Now, I don't know if anybody signed up to my Telegram group, but on the Telegram group on Monday, I posted a screenshot that drew in this exact level and an arrow pointing up to that point, and then an arrow coming back again. So all I'm doing is following through on something that I
your analysis, basically.
My analysis, and I'm going to say that I predicted would happen, and that doesn't mean that I'm any kind of seer. It just means that every once in a while the market does do what you expect. So because it's done the first part of what I expected, which is get up to this point, I'm looking for now to do the next thing that I expect. Now that could go completely wrong, but the point is I only need one or two of these to do what I expect to make some decent money, and it's possible that this is one of them. So that's my thought process, mate. And also, I'm not really sure whether we're out the woods yet of all the, you know, the reason that we drove down here in the first place, which was all to do with trade wars. You know, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping have not yet met. So the move to the upside is with the hope that when they meet, or if they meet, that they come to some sort of deal. Now
there's your buy on the rumor.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the buy the rumor, yeah. And now, you know, we've got quite a while. I mean, it's only the 6th of February, which means that we've got 3 weeks until they potentially, you know, that they're going to be meeting up. But who knows? I mean, I would suspect that if the market does pop forward here, that by the time that meeting comes in, there would definitely be some rowing back because
you're going to get a good price then.
Yeah, you're going to get a good price, and I think people would be probably less confident that that a deal could be done until the deal is done. You know, especially with the extension that's been going on. And when we think about bars as well, you know, we're all trading kind of bars, reversal bars. You know, lovely reversal bar here, or a reversal bar here when we see this this train tracks reversal. Or this evening star up here. This in itself looks to me like a reversal bar, you know, and I know that sounds kind of ridiculous to say, but that bar is so overextended when we compare it to the run. That is the biggest bar in this whole run. So that to me looks like a reversal bar just because it's closed on a high. It's very much overextended, and it's the very last bar in the particular run so far, I suppose. So even if the market pops forward here, I suspect we're probably not going to get a bar like this. So it might maybe get to that point, and then the question is that point a good enough point to stay with this trade anyway? You know, and see if it was to drip, and if we're aiming down here, even coming up there gives us a decent risk to reward ratio. So I'm okay with this and where we are. And from here on in, it's just how it's to be managed.
All right, mate. Awesome. Should we take a look at some currencies, do you think?
Let's do that. Let's do that. I think I might join you with this because I want to get my eyes off this, really.
If I can keep the tears out of my eyes, I'll...
do you know what? At least they're tears of disappointment rather than... or frustration rather than, anger that a trade has been lost.
Indeed. Oh, look, I'm having a good day. Don't get me wrong. But it could have been so much better. So much better. And, it was there. I placed the trades, but didn't get executed. Never mind. Let's talk about what we can do and what we can control. Nothing here at all. I mean, you've just got to let this fall. There's no way you can get in here now. Getting in was up here somewhere. And goodness only knows where you even get a retracement here. It may go right to here, but I'm suspecting that the monthly pivot will hold it up. And at that point, I wouldn't be interested anyway. I don't really want to trade against the momentum. I'd rather let it hit the bottom of this range as I've got it, and then look for the upside. If we were to retrace dramatically now without hitting the monthly pivot, it might be a different story. But at this point in time, you've just got to let that go. And I've just got to let that go. You can do whatever you like. But that will be my stance on the Aussie from this point until I see a change, until we hit some resistance or support. Cable is a different story entirely, and I'm keen here. Now, I don't know if I was distracted when you were talking about what was happening in Britain and Brexit. Ash, maybe we'll revisit that before the show's out, because I would like to know if there's any downside buy or balance in terms of what's Brexit talks, etc. But as I see it, we're at a pretty good support level here. Been support here, it's been resistance here, support here, and that's only going back 9 months or so. So this is a decent level. You can see it's a nice white line on my chart. That means it's a historical. Well, it's not necessarily an historical level. It's a level that we do recognize as a horizontal level, and it is 129. What is that level? 129.38-ish. That's close enough. So monthly pivot's a little disappointing that hasn't been tested. It's probably a fib level as well. Looks like about a 38.2 fib level. Should we have a look at it? I suppose we should. If we pull it from there. Yep. Right on that month. That's just a little bit disappointing it hasn't hit the monthly pivot. So there's a lot to like about this level if you're thinking long. If you're not thinking long, then it doesn't really matter. But I am, and it's kind of what I was waiting for since here. And I was just trying to get in, and it wouldn't pull back apart from this bar that that Paul H got into, and I refused to trade. Wise me. Never mind. We're back there, exactly the same level, would you believe? And if I can find a reason to go long here, then that would be my want. Let's see what we can manage. 4-hour chart, we're putting in a double bottom, it would appear, at the moment, with about an hour and a half, a bit more than that, hour and 3/4 before this candle closes. That's what it looks like to me. If that were the case, happy days. But a little bit difficult to trade at this point in time. I'd have to see, and what I'd like to see is a daily pivot test, a bounce off that, then a refusal to go back below this white line here, which is what, 129.34-ish. So hit the daily pivot, come back and retest this level, give me a higher low there, and that would be my signal to go. 30-minute chart, I may even be lucky enough to get a trade to the daily pivot. What do we got? I'll say we've got a double bottom already. I'll say we've got a sneaky little trend line coming through here. So again, I'd like to hit that, come back, maybe the same line, the white line, give me a higher low there. And I see no reason why we couldn't take that trade to the daily pivot. Dependent on how big your bar is, of course. You want about a 10 pip bar so that you can take profit before these highs of the day that we don't trade into without a take profit. And you just exit at the daily pivot. That's a pretty simple trade if that were to set up that way. So test here, back, give us a nice high low, and away we go. That'll be my strategy on the pound for the day.
Yep.
Euro dollar will be absolutely exactly the same. The only issue here, and yesterday I was talking about this level, somewhere between 114 and 113.60. 113.60 is always my preference because I know it's a recognized level. So if we were to get to here and then get a reversal bar, that would please me more. You know, very similar to the pound, really, that hasn't really tested the monthly pivot. This hasn't really tested the level that I would like it to test. That said, what I would do if we do get a setup here is place the order, but get my stop well below that level. So maybe down here somewhere. That would be the way I'd play that. And then if we do get down to here, without triggering me, I'd probably change the entry level. So that'll be my plan on the euro. Let me see how that will execute, or how we can execute that. Not in a great spot, I'd have to say, in terms of a confluence area, which is, of course, what I'm looking for at all times. So that's kind of in no man's land, which is a little bit of a shame. Maybe the 30-minute chart gives us something we can work with. Not really. It's not awesome. It gives me one line and one line only, really. And that would be that line there. So it's not impossible. Interesting bar, this one. Couldn't engulf the reversal bar or the low test bar. And now we're getting another, well, inside bar at the moment based on this candle. So there's not a lot happening here. Perhaps there is a double bottom to form. If that's the case, same as I've just been mentioning. Let's get to a level, come off it, and give us that higher low, and away we shall go. Pretty common theme on these three, mate. Well, not the Aussie, but pound and the euro, exactly the same in terms of what I'm looking for. I can't see me touching an Aussie pair today anymore anyway. Certainly not that one. That's like catching the falling knife or not, and I choose not. Pound yen. Yeah, it's coming to an interesting point, this one. Towards the bottom of the channel. Is that enough to give me the bottom of the channel? Maybe. There is a level there. Pardon me. Okay. Untested daily pivots. Potential bounce point. If pound doesn't set up, maybe this one might. What do we got? Not much. I don't like this line down here. But I might have to keep my eye on it. Maybe let it break and then come down and hit the back side of it, where this confluence area is, which is the previous double bottom, if you like. Okay, I'll go with that. Break, retest, go. But I'm not that keen. I don't really like this setup at all. Again, we're short of the support level. You know, the pound was short of monthly pivot. The euro is short of 113.60. Yeah, This might be a trap. Might well be a trap.
This is the thing. It's, you're obviously looking at a lot of these in conjunction with the dollar, right? I mean, it's if we are looking for Fed Powell to come out and Chair Powell, sorry, to come out and say something fairly dovish, that's probably going to weaken the dollar more so, isn't it? Rather than giving us any strength.
It is, and we're in prime position to take advantage of that. Most definitely. But what happens before then is the question. You know, is the market going to continue to sell off until that happens? And even after it happens, you know, I can't predict it. But all I'm saying is I'm at a great or near a great level that I want to buy at.
Yeah.
And if I get the opportunity, then yeah, absolutely. There's nothing will stop me.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely no reason not to. So
yeah.
And on the setup.
and when you're saying to buy it, we're talking about the pound here.
Pound and euro.
And the euro, okay.
I mean, I'm already doing very well with the euro against the CAD today. So if I can get it against the dollar as well, happy days.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're up euro CAD.
Yeah,
you're long euro CAD.
Yeah, I've just closed another 2 positions on the 2 positions that I've got on EuroCAD. So yeah, I'm having a pretty good time with that one.
Yeah, that's a really good open, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, not bad at all. Quite chuffed.
Yeah, that's really good, actually.
So this one's a little different. Euro yen.
Yep.
Wonder what the yen's going to do. Wonder what the yen is going to do.
Kind of where is it in the position here? Yeah, this one is quite interesting, isn't it? So what the dailies have got a little trend line level, but it's
may come a little. Yen?
No, I'm looking at the euro yen.
Euro yen.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like the dailies. Yeah, I guess I've got the same thing there, or even off the back, I've got it. Well, it's actually it produces this not quite the same result as yours, but almost. But it's pretty much the same area actually. It does look like close to a bounce point, doesn't it?
It's one or the other. It's bounce or break time here.
Yeah,
I quite like this scenario because it should give us a clear indication. We're at a confluence area. It should give us a clear indication as to whether it's going to go long or short from here off this area. So it's very much worth watching here at Euro yen. If we were to get a low test bar hitting this trend line, I'd actually take that as a short.
Yeah.
That would do me. 2 other ways to play it. One, allow it to break, take out this low, and then hit it from the backside. Then look to short it. Or if it finds that support level there and consolidates, then gets back above both the top of the range, or the 3 of them actually, the trend line and the weekly pivot, and hits them from the top side, then that's definitely a long signal. So I think we'll get that signal. Well, I hope we'll get that signal. Sometimes it just goes bang or bang. You can't do anything about it, but it should give you an indication here as to which way it wants to go. So euro yen's high on my watch list.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm not going to predict it. It could go either way, but as long as
we're just going to wait for it to unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as it lets us know, then who cares which way it goes?
Yeah.
Here we go. Euro pound. We've been talking about this one for a while, and yesterday, look what it did. Beautifully to the top of the channel, and the monthly pivot. Bang on it. So, what do you do from there? Well, I would have been looking. I probably would have traded that bar straight away. It's not. No, it's not trending. No, I wouldn't have traded that bar straight away. I would have been waiting for something here, but the daily pivot's a bit of an issue. Interesting, Ash. Very interesting.
You like that as well?
yeah, look, it can go either way here. Really, there might be another level that I'm not looking at. Let me see. Why have I got that yellow line there? There must be a reason. That's why. It's a strong level. Resistance, 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 support, support, consolidation, resistance, resistance. Yeah, that's why. Okay, I'm a little bit bearish on that chart. But gee whiz, this has been a tug of war, hasn't it? Euro and pound. And which way does it go next? Look at the chart. Up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
Interesting. Sorry, I'm just listening to a little Brexit thing in the background here, and it's really interesting what they're saying about the pound. And the NIESR, which are a quite respected bunch of economists, have said that if the Brexit negotiations go well, the Bank of England would be predicted then to start raising interest rates in August, and then be raising them 25 basis points every single announcement after that, right up until the end of the year. So,
sorry, who's saying that?
The NIESR, which is, in fact, I'll give you the definitive term.
That's not that mob that's on the telly in on American TV that does the crime investigations, is it?
No, I don't know who it is.
Sounds like them.
No, it's the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, just to give you the correct term. Which, you know, I mean, the thing about terminology is that it's irrelevant, really. But more importantly is the fact that these are one of the most respected, the higher respected think tanks out there. You know, the Institute for Economic and Social Research. That's very much respected.
Academics.
A group of respected academics. Yeah. Most significantly.
There is a difference, isn't there?
Well, do you know, this is the thing. I mean, every second person's an economist, probably you and I included. You know, the thing about being an economist is that it's based on opinion rather than fact. I mean, the amount of opinions that what would happen after the Brexit vote that haven't come to fruition, that have now been thrown right back in the economists' faces, has really proved that economics in itself and economic models are very difficult to then see through, because human beings are involved, and human beings.
Exactly right. People get in the way.
Yeah, people get in the way, and it makes the whole thing pretty random. And I find this stuff quite fascinating, because when it comes down to economics, a lot of economic models are built on maths, and without maths, we couldn't have predicted how far away we are from the sun. Or Scottish Widows, which is one of the biggest pension companies, couldn't predict what the average age of husbands were going to be, to be able to make a profitable business, to calculate how much they're going to pay to those husbands' wives when those husbands were going to pass away. You know, maths helped Darwin. Maths helped the Newton, and it's one of those things that you kind of you recognize how important it is, but when it comes down
makes
to
the world go around, mate.
It absolutely does. But I suppose to get to the ultimate answer, I mean, even Einstein's theory of relativity is being put under pressure now, and I think it's one of those things that to get to the right answer, you have to get through a lot of wrong mathematical equations before you get the one that you settle on. And that's the problem with economics. You know, economics, as I say, is based on these mathematical models that the majority of them are going to be wrong. Even with an amazing mathematician and an amazing economist, they're still going to be wrong. You know, Christopher Columbus, for example, you know, didn't even realize that he discovered America. And this guy is, you know, was an amazing naval officer or naval captain, and brilliant mathematician, because you know, the calculations that he'd have to do. So maths is wrong when put in the wrong hands, I suppose. So that's a problem with economics, but back to the point here that the National Institute of Economic Social Research get it right more than they do wrong, which is why that they are respected, and they are saying that there is a high probability that the Bank of England will be raising interest rates in August with a good Brexit outcome, and then 25 basis points thereafter. So that is going to be boosting the pound, and that is why we see some buying coming in with the pound here. So it really does, I think, promote the idea that we should be getting into trades long on the pound and then seeing if we can get a decent enough price to hold on to them, because this really will run. If we get a good Brexit outcome, this will run, and you just basically want something. You want some entry with the pound, which is not going to affect your account if it plummets, or your account too heavily if it plummets. But the balance of that is to make sure that there's enough on to make the trade worthwhile. But this thing really could run, and where you'd have to make what you said, a week's wages out of what could be 100 pips. I think you could be a little bit more conservative with the pound and say, well, let's aim for 300, because this thing could go 1,000 in a blink of an eye.
Well, it's now 260 from where I entered.
The pound Aussie.
Pound Aussie, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Well, this is case in point, isn't it? I mean, yeah, you get a pound trade. Yeah, you want to stick with it as long as possible.
Won't be getting that one back.
Unlikely, mate. And you're normally the bringer of positivity about these things, that you always get a second chance. But I'm probably in agreement with you. The only thing is that it has been pretty vicious, that move to the upside. I mean, I suppose it's bounced from a pretty significant level, though, right?
Well, I thought so, but I look, I'll get over this, and there will be a retracement and potentially another entry. But things can change as well.
Oh my God!
In the meantime,
that's I see why you went for that trade. I love that, mate. That's amazing.
Yeah, prick, isn't it?
Yeah, there's probably not going to be very. There's going to be very little that's going to make this feel better, isn't it? Even though the analysis was amazing. Look at that, though. I mean, I think that is a picture of the perfect, probably slingshot, but for me, that is just what people should be looking for. That's a picture. What you've done there is exactly what I'm doing on the FTSE, where you've picked an extreme level and you've moved in the opposite direction with some fundamental reason.
There was reason behind it, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love that kind of trade. I mean, that I think is the picture perfect trade. And if anybody should be really taking anything away from this, I think that is it. That's as I say, that's exactly what I'm attempting to do here with the FTSE, because the two of us know that if it breaks down, yes, it'll be vicious, but the chance of it moving to the upside for greater reward is certainly evident and prevalent there.
I better take a look at the 30-minute candles, shall I?
You should.
All right, let's do so. I think.
Yeah, while I do that, I'll be back in 2 minutes while you do that.
Yeah, cool. I think we can just about forget about the Aussie US dollar for the rest of the day. It's GONE. Cable starting to come back. There's no doubt about that. We were looking for this level, and now we're looking for a higher low in this vicinity. So we've got a couple of reversal patterns to work with. We've got a double bottom. We've got a morning star here. We've got it's really a spinning top. It's hammerish though, so is that one. So there's reason to think this can reverse, and I'm more than happy to accommodate if, in fact, we do get a nice signal here. It could, of course, just explode, and I'm hoping that's not the case. I'd like to get an entry on this at some stage. Euro is not an exact replica, but it's near as damn. And the process is exactly the same. One thing, though, I suppose, is we haven't hit that resistance level, and that's what I'll be seeking. The resistance level, the pullback, and maybe it depends on the candle. There may be a reason just to trade the pullback. But if there's a higher low here, that would be the way to go, in my opinion. Aussie yen, forget. Pound yen, not as clear or clean as is the pound US dollar. So I'd be certainly leaning towards cable if I'm to trade this long. But, it will depend a lot on setups as well. Euro yen on the 30-minute chart. Yeah, kind of in no man's land. But let's take a look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is telling me we're back inside this range that we went into on the 9th of January. So it's not that old, but it's nigh on a month old, and we've struggled to get clear of it. Obviously, the last week or so has been the best attempt yet, but here we are back inside. Last time we got back inside, we couldn't get below the weekly pivot, but now the weekly pivot's above us, which is a little more interesting. So I am of a bearish nature here, or a bearish bias, but I'd accept a signal in either direction. So what I'm looking for is probably a low test bar sitting on that line would do me. I would take that as a potential short, or a break that takes this low out and then a retest from the underside. That would be a signal for the short. For the long, hit this support level, which is the low of, was that Monday or Friday? Friday or Thursday even. So take that low out, find that low, and then consolidate in this area, get back above the level, probably the daily pivot, the weekly pivot as well. So close up here somewhere, retest the confluence, and bang goes your mangoes, away you go long. So there's a couple of options there, as I said before, but at this point in time, kind of in no man's land where we are, waiting for a setup. Euro pound, we've just spoken about euro pound, and
I missed that. Sorry, what did you say about the euro pound? Or was that before we said earlier?
No, I'm just getting there, mate.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. That's all right. You missed it because it hasn't happened. So, what chart am I on? 30-minute chart. Why weren't we looking? Why did we miss that?
Not sure why you missed that.
That's bizarre. I have no idea. That was a potential entry right there. It's a little bubba candle, but it's a lower high on a reversal. Wow. Okay. Sorry about that. I've completely overlooked that for some reason. Maybe I was looking at the 4-hour chart. EuroCAD has had a little retrace. You would expect that after a nice breakout. And if you're in this trade, I'll go to the 30-minute chart. There's absolutely nothing to do if you're not in this trade, from my point of view anyway. But if you are in this trade, then you can see that we're at a crucial level here, which is the top of, I'll put this range in actually. It's worthy of our attention. Probably starts here. Struggling to find an equal high there. Maybe there. Okay. It's a little rough and ready, I've got to say, but you can see what's happened. False break, double bottom, back inside, higher low, bang goes your mangoes. Beautiful. What happens from here? Well, this is the testing material for me. If we can stay above here, pardon me, then I think this has got some future in it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I looked at that as well, and I went down to the 15, and I saw that there's a potential hold point there on the 15, so that's got a good chance of getting to the weekly pivot, isn't it? If that can get through here.
Yes, this is the crucial point in the trade right now. I'm not that concerned because I've taken a fair chunk off both trades. I mean, obviously, if it keeps going, happy days, but I've done well out of it, so I'm not that concerned. Targets. I don't really have a target other than the monthly pivot and this yellow line, really. So it's 152 for me. And that'll be quite nice if that happens, of course. I don't see an option right now to do anything. I could say trade long here, but I don't see that as a good option after the market has already moved off its low, 70 odd pips. I don't think that's a great trade to take. It's certainly possible, but I don't think it's a great entry. I'll put it that way. Deeper retracement with a reversal here, it would be a better option, in my humble opinion. Euro Aussie. Interestingly, now at the top of this range. Let me have a look at that range. Yeah, that's a pretty strong level. Certainly, the recency of that level is the testing material. We've tried and failed on most occasions. With the Aussie so weak and the Euro potentially about to reverse, or is it? Yeah, potential. I'm not saying it is, but it's potentially about to reverse. That's probably a reasonable thought process that this level will go. But again, do you want to jump in here? I don't think so. That's not for me, certainly. What I would consider, I won't because I don't want to overexpose myself to the euro, but what I would consider probably is a backside test of this trend line that's been broken, and maybe then there's an entry, but yeah, too hard to enter here in my humble opinion, so I wouldn't be looking at that. Aussie CAD, forget Aussie. Dollar yen's interesting because it has come back into that range. What is that range? 4-hour chart. Yeah, the range is defined. I'm okay with that. So we're back in here. Same as always, looking for a pullback towards the top of the range and a lower high. Sure, that would be the way I'd be looking at that one. And that's really where I'm at, mate. I don't see any more entries at this point in time, but later on, if the pound comes back and gives me what I'm looking for, a higher low, the euro does the same, we could be in business.
Yeah,
and I think that that'll be my focus, definitely.
Anything more that you'd want to do with euro pound?
My microphone is working.
Yeah.
I just can't find anything here right now. I suppose what I can look at. Is just
dailies of any interest?
Just another lower high,
the daily. I have to say the daily chart. The daily chart still suggests to me that we're going to get a bounce up.
Does it really?
Yeah.
I've
got a slight issue with this. Let me just check the 4-hourly.
Yeah, I'm kind of tongue-tied for a reason, and the reason is I'm not sure. The monthly pivot has got me snookered here. That's why I'm and was definitely on the downside. But we've got a situation here where we've rejected the daily pivot already, and this may be a second one of those. If this is a second one of those, then the market will see that as weakness down here, and may look to drive this a second time. Well, second time. 1, 2, 3, maybe a fifth time. Don't know how normal that is, but I'm a little bit on the seesaw here, mate, on the fence.
Yeah, do you know what I
think they're both going to rally, and you know that's the hard bit. I can't line them up.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Actually, a couple of updates on the FTSE, which I'll bring in a moment. But let me just bring in the the euro, and we'll come back to the FTSE. I'm on the FTSE, but I'm going to come back to this in a second. Yeah, the euro pound. My problem with it is, and I'm going to have to bring the pivots in here. Where your headache is the monthly pivot, my headache is the weekly pivot, and I would anticipate this coming down to the, oh gosh, that's too messy. Oh god, that's a shame. I'm just gonna mark this level here. So it's spot 87.29 or spot 87.30 or something. This is my problem. Somewhere around about there, the weekly pivot, and when we bring this onto a 4-hour chart, it seems to run in to that. Oh no, it won't run in there, will it? Maybe it won't run in there. How did I just do that? Hold on one moment, because I've. Oh no, it doesn't run in there quite actually. I think the trend line is probably the problem. What I would be concerned with. I mean, I think short-term downside is on here. And I think this trend line is a good area, and I think if it gets through that area, the weekly pivot would probably cause a bounce for us to come down again, and that would probably be a surer area for longer-term downside. But I still think there's a chance that we could bounce at this point and try and create some sort of inverted head and shoulders, even though it's going to be a difficult one to see. But there's definitely now some kind of channel here, isn't there? That we are channeling up here.
Yeah, I've got one there, and it's kind of one of those things where if you look back in say a week's time, and you'll see that the market has bounced off the monthly pivot and gone to the weekly pivot, and you think, well, how on earth didn't I trade that?
Yeah, absolutely.
But as you say, the potential for bounce here is also there, so it's not a fait accompli by any stretch.
If it breaks down,
if it does, yeah, but
I think it brings us right down to test these lows on the monthly, which and this is the thing that's the most interesting, I think, about this monthly bar that we were looking at, the formation, we were looking at this one forming, weren't we, last month? And that monthly bar is so unbelievably bearish. The indication of that is so unbelievably bearish that if we bring this to a line chart, which I think it kind of it maybe gives us a slightly clearer picture, the prices really kind of drive us not much higher than this point here, which is back to these lows here maybe. So I haven't got a problem with downside on the euro pound, but I just wonder whether we move up into almost right up into the deadline before the market gives us the potential option for some downside. And I'm going to leave these lines on here, because that now gives us that triangle, doesn't it? When we're sort of like looking at that on a on a line chart, that gives us the triangle, which if that leads us back to these lows here, somewhere around about these lows here at 8,400, right back down to there. So bringing this back to a candlestick chart. maybe it retests, but by the end of this month, but then into March we start to drift down. I don't know. But my issue with it is the timing. but the line chart.
My issue with it is the uncertainty of what's going on.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? Which kind of which does come into that, and also the line chart obviously gives us completely different lines and levels than the candles do, because the candles kind of suggest that there might even be a level through there. If we consider that, it didn't quite touch, but it's close, and that does actually lead us to pretty much where we are. So this is definitely a resistance point, and the line chart isn't too much higher than that. So actually, the line chart's there. So the bearish price action does look pretty good. Not a bad point to try and get in.
Well, there was a little point on the 30-minute chart that we completely overlooked.
Yeah, I don't know how that was missed, actually. I completely see that.
I don't know. We're obviously talking about something else. But shouldn't have been at that. Oh, that's first candle.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yeah, we were only just in at that time.
That's why I wasn't looking at it, mate.
Yeah.
Because I don't trade the first bar.
Right. Okay, just have you got anything that you wanted to add?
No, mate, I'm sorted. Pound and euro long. If the euro continues to go long euro CAD, then it's been a good day that could have been a whole bloody lot better.
Okay, I've had days, mate. I can completely feel you, and it's one of those that we know we're going to get another opportunity at some point, but these ones are a little bit hard to stomach.
I've been around long enough to realise that it doesn't make a whole lot of difference in the scheme of things.
That's the point, isn't it?
The ball will bounce in the other direction one day. So
yeah. No, I just want to bring in this FTSE because I think I've been slightly my analysis has been maybe just a little bit lazy. So I want to just finish up with discussing the original plan. Back to the original plan, because it's the original plan which I'm looking to play out, and the original plan did involve the formation of the inverted head and shoulders here, but my inverted head and shoulders is just slightly higher, and I want to make sure that everybody takes profit in the right place. So we're looking up here. What I was saying is that the inverted head and shoulders would possibly come down to this point here, but this is going to be dependent on on what time frame this happens. So I'm going to have to use this particular line, and also we do have to be aware that this probably is breakout level somewhere around about there. It's not absolutely flat, so there is a possibility that we only come down to this point. And I will be looking at that. That's still a good 100 pips to to the downside that I'll be looking at. That's my minimum target, by the way. I won't be doing anything with this unless we see this price. If we see that price, start considering taking the trade off, which could potentially mean missing out on another 100 or so pips. So we have to be aware of what we're going to do here. But what may happen is there might be a bit of profit taken here, then see if it breaks and back tests, and then continues to flow to the downside. But it's going to depend on velocity, and it's going to depend on some announcements. What's going to be the driver to take us down here? If the driver is kind of weak, then I think we take profit here. If the driver is a little bit more certain, then we can see if this one will go through. So that's just to give people a heads up, and mainly because we are in tomorrow, but after tomorrow we don't have a show, so don't have anything Friday. So it might be that it gets down here on Friday, and everybody needs to start making decisions and choices on this. If it comes down, I'm not trying to get ahead of everybody and say that's what's going to happen, but it's important to try and plan your trade so you don't get itchy fingers and come out of a trade too early. Now, obviously, it hasn't broken down yet. We look on a 5-minute chart, and it looks pretty sexy, but that's not really what we're after. So we're still looking on this hourly. So if we come back to an hourly with pivots, then this daily pivot is still going to cause some issues here, and the trend line is also right on top of it. If we put this here, if we put that there, the trend line is still right on top of it, or a trend line is right on top of it. So there's still going to be a bounce potentially here. The key is going to be is if this comes through this area and back again and the bar closes above, giving us that hammer, that's the point that I would consider taking profit and then trying to re-enter, pretty much where I am now. But I'll look at the bars down here. You know, if it gets down here, let's just look at the bars and make decisions on what the market reveals, because the reveal may well be that that it's going to continue to the downside and we don't get another chance. But if the market reveals that it's more likely to bounce, then I might just close the trade and see if I can re-enter, or maybe take a little bit off the table and see if I can re-enter. So we'll see how it pans out. I may do nothing, you know, but let's see if the market just gives us a message, and just want everybody to be aware that may well happen. So looking at one of those reversal patterns that you guys know. The daily wave rider traders will be absolutely fine. Look for a low test bar. Look for a which could be, you know, look like a hammer potentially. Look for a train track reversal, or look for an engulfing pattern here, and you'd want to take the trade probably off the table at that point. But that's again down to your own appetite for getting down to the lows. But 100 pips ish is your overall target. And that isn't really taking profit either. I'm not trying to make this trade safe. I'm not going to take half off or anything like that. I'm either all in or all out on this particular trade.
All right, mate. Good luck with that. As you say, trade it to your risk appetite, guys.
Yeah, risk appetite and whatever plan that you want to put together from here on in.
Happy days. All right. That's about us, mate, I'd reckon.
Yep, absolutely. So one more for us tomorrow?
Yeah, look, I might be struggling. I'm traveling, but I should be in place well and truly before the show. But if there's an issue with the internet, I'll certainly let you know via Skype. And
no problem.
But we should be fine.
We do have questions, mate. I don't know if you want to deal with them, or you need to nick off and I deal with them.
No, I'll deal with them if you like.
Okay. All right. Let's have a look at this together then. So the first one is Sean, who's saying that the pound dollar has reached a significant level on the 15-minute chart, and there's a little question mark. So is that the case? So let's have a quick look at pound dollar. Pedro's also got comments on the pound dollar as well. So let's have a quick look at that on the 15. Oh, okay. So I'm presuming that we may have slightly missed the chat on this, because what Sean is saying on the 15-minute chart, I'm guessing, is that he's looking at this particular bar here. This particular bar here.
I can't see chat, so I've got no idea.
I think he's talking about this area here. Is this a significant level on the 15? And with a reversal bar, and the truth is, can we use the word significant level and 15-minute chart in the same sentence? I don't think we can we?
If you're looking at that level, let's name the level. Is it what 129.58 you're looking at? I'm not sure what level.
Yeah, I've got about that. Yeah, about that.
Or 129.61 maybe. Is that the level?
Yeah, that's where we are now. Yeah,
it's significant in that it's the high of the day for me.
Okay.
And for that reason, well, two things happen there. One is I like it to break before I trade it, and the other one is, or be well enough away from it that I can take profit before it. And the other one is I don't trade into it without profit. So significant in that regard. In terms of historically, I don't believe so.
Yeah. So is the question really looking for upside or downside, Sean? Because I just want to kind of shed some light on this. That Jeff and I were both talking about this. Let's look at this on a slightly longer time frame, because if we consider this on a daily chart here, I'm just going to remove this daily pivot. Get rid of that. Look at this on a daily chart here. It's bouncing off the monthly pivot potentially. So if we're looking for downside, we really are going to be battling against some of these buyers here. Now that's not to say that we're looking for upside this early in the picture, but certainly right now, if what I suspect will happen, and this is purely speculation, but what I suspect will happen is that we could well get a trapping between the two pivots here, between the daily and monthly pivot over the course of the day. So it just kind of like goes into some sort of range bound trading. But if it ends up towards the daily pivot, if it closes towards the daily pivot, we come back to a daily chart, and the daily chart is going to give us something that looks like a little hold here, a little low test bar or some sort of hammer there if it closes nearer where it is, which makes tomorrow a really good day to try and look for upside. Now you will be battling against that announcement and that meeting, but I wonder whether we just get trapped in here and we don't do too much. Is there any news on the pound today?
Not from my memory.
Now, I don't know what direction you're looking in, Sean, but my preference here would be to look for the long.
I mean, I'm sure if Sean's been in the show, he would have heard my analysis. And my analysis is that I want to hit this resistance level, the one that we've just spoken about, the exact level, then pull away back, come back off it to the downside and hit the support level, which for me is around about 129.37, and that's where I want to go long.
Yeah.
After we get the dip. If we don't get the dip, then I miss the trade.
Yeah.
But I'd rather miss the trade than get wiped out on the first run.
Yeah. And I'm just going to give you a slightly different view of that. I realise you didn't see my screen when I was doing the analysis before. This is what I was talking about before. So if it gets trapped in this area, you're going to get what looks like a reversal bar here, which would suggest some sort of morning star pattern forming, which means the third bar is the significant one. Now with that, if we look at the hourly with pivots here, then what we have is the potential for this to do exactly as Jeff says. You see, I see two different potential areas here, but the fact that it's bouncing off the monthly pivot and it's at a significant daily level would suggest that it probably would struggle to break down. And what I wouldn't mind seeing is this line instead. So I see this as the potential area to be caged. I'm not sure about the first one, but I'd quite like to see this. I see this as a broadening pattern on the hourly, and what I'd kind of like to see happen here is it break above the daily pivot, that retest that area, and then look for the long.
I'd also be in that boat.
Yeah,
no problem.
Okay, great. So I think we're on the same page with that. Now there's also a trend line here. So there's quite a lot in this particular area. So if you try and mark off these three lines, I've got an hourly trend line starting at 1700 on the 4th. My next line comes in. My next touch is at 1100 on the 5th, and that leads us down to the area that we are looking to break through. So a decent break through the daily pivot will take out this area, and it will take out the top end of this broadening pattern. So that would suggest that if it comes back to the daily pivot, we would have a trade to the upside, and then that would be my play on the pound. That's the way that I would like to play it. That's the way that I would want it to unfold. If it doesn't do that, I'd ignore it personally. Cool, no problem, Sean. Now, just quickly as well, Pedro's pound dollar on the 30-minute chart has a strong looking divergence on the MACD for a long. MACD divergence on the hourly chart and lower for the pound plus double bottom. Yeah, I mean, I think that probably, hopefully that we just covered that as well with that analysis, Pedro. So I don't trade with MACD, but if it's got divergence, that's a tick. And I think both Jeff and I, looking at Jeff's a much more accomplished trader on the 30-minute chart than I am, and his analysis.
Yeah, you're talking Dothraki to me if you're talking MACDs.
Well, do you know when it comes down to that stuff, it's just you know, I always think of these indicators as you know, using extra just a bit of confidence, you know.
Mate, do you know what? I'm absolutely all for anything that gives you a consistent and winning entry into the market. Don't care what it is. If it's cows farting out in the meadows, I don't care what it is. You know, if that works, that's all that counts. But I'm just saying, for personally, and my personal preference is not to go there.
Yeah,
simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, when I look at the momentum indicators, they don't suggest anything that clean, you know. So you know, what they do suggest is that we do potentially move forward, and then we drift to the downside and hold for a while, rather than getting the boost. So if we're looking at indicators, the indicators suggest going up, coming back, resting, maybe even touching this lower line, breaking back through the area again, resting, and then starting to pick up in a you know, 24 hours or so. But you know, I think you may well miss the trade if you do that. So I prefer to see that break, come back, look for reversal signs and signals in the area here around the daily pivot, and then look for upside. But as Jeff says, you know, if MACD is your huckleberry, then you really want to follow it, especially if you found success in that, because indicators are a great way to enter the market, in my opinion. Really good tools if you get good on an indicator. So hopefully that's covered it. Anyway, if there's anything else, then I will stick around to answer. But hopefully that's covered the opinions there. Both Jeff and I ultimately along. And then it's just down to your preference of what you want to see when it comes back to the daily pivot area. And the daily pivot may be different tomorrow, but what we're talking about is the price that the daily pivot currently sits at, is of interest to both of us. So good luck with that, guys, and hopefully you'll be in tomorrow to tell us that you've entered the trade and you're making lots of money out of it.
Absolutely.
Because Jeff will be doing that, won't you?
I'll be doing my best.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, just a couple of things to consider. The pound kind of looks good because of Theresa May's rhetoric overnight about there being much more likelihood of a soft Brexit, and the dollar could potentially look a little bit weak if Jerome Powell comes out tomorrow and continues to advocate a more dovish stance on the interest rate hike. So a couple of other things to consider there as well. And it would be even better if the trade entry was to happen after that announcement, but that's not a guarantee. So with that, mate, I will say farewell.
All right, mate.
And
happy days.
Yeah, have a great afternoon or great evening where you are. And for everyone else, see you tomorrow. Same trade time, same trade channel.
Have a good one, guys.